Museveni, the rebel who became Uganda's longest-ruling president. For nearly 4 decades, one man has dominated the politics of Uganda, a former guerrilla fighter, a revolutionary who promised democracy, but who has remained in power longer than almost any leader on the continent. His name is Yoweri Museveni. How did a young rebel fighter take power? And how did he manage to stay there for nearly 40 years? This is the story of revolution, power, and the long rule of Uganda's most influential president. Uganda's road to Museveni's rule began decades earlier. After independence in 1962, the country quickly became politically unstable. In 1971, General Idi Amin seized power in a violent military coup, overthrowing President Milton Obote. Amin ruled with fear. Thousands of political opponents were killed. The economy collapsed. Uganda became internationally isolated. But Amin's brutal rule would not last forever. In 1979, war erupted between Uganda and neighboring Tanzania. With the help of Ugandan exiles and rebels, Tanzanian forces invaded. Amin's regime collapsed. He fled into exile. Uganda once again needed new leadership. In 1980, elections were held, but those elections would ignite another conflict. The 1980 elections returned Milton Obote to power, but many believed the election had been rigged. One of the loudest critics was a young revolutionary named Yoweri Museveni. Museveni had fought against Idi Amin. Now he believed Uganda had been robbed of democracy once again. In 1981, Museveni launched a guerrilla war against the government. His force was called the National Resistance Army. The war became known as the Ugandan Bush War. Museveni's fighters operated from forests and rural villages. Using guerrilla tactics, they ambushed government troops and slowly expanded their territory. But the war came at a terrible cost. Tens of thousands of civilians died during the conflict. Still, Museveni's army continued growing stronger. In 1985, Obote was overthrown by his own military commanders led by Tito Okello. But the new government was weak. Museveni refused to stop the rebellion. In January 1986, his forces marched into the capital, Kampala. The government collapsed. After 5 years of war, Museveni became the new president of Uganda. When Museveni took power, many Ugandans believed a new era had begun. He promised democracy. He promised reform, and he famously declared, "The problem of Africa is leaders who overstay in power." For a time, Uganda experienced stability. The economy recovered. International investors returned. Museveni became one of Africa's most respected leaders. But power has a way of changing revolutions. Over the years, Museveni strengthened his grip on the state. In 2005, Uganda removed presidential term limits. This meant Museveni could run for president indefinitely. Then in 2017, the constitution was amended again. The presidential age limit was removed. Critics said the rules were being changed to keep Museveni in power. Supporters said he was still the best leader for Uganda. A new generation of Ugandans began demanding change. One of the most famous opposition figures was musician-turned-politician Bobi Wine. He inspired millions of young voters. But tensions between the government and opposition grew. Elections became increasingly contested, and the political future of Uganda remained uncertain. From a guerrilla fighter in the jungle to one of Africa's longest-serving presidents, Yoweri Museveni's story is the story of modern Uganda. To some, he is the man who saved a nation from chaos. To others, he is a leader who never let go of power. But one question still remains. When will Uganda enter its next chapter? When Museveni took power, many Ugandans saw him as a liberator. His first speech promised a new era. He famously declared, "The problem of Africa is leaders who overstay in power." Museveni promised democracy, stability, and national unity. His government introduced a political system called the movement system. Under this system, political parties were restricted. Museveni argued that party politics had caused ethnic division. Instead, Uganda would be governed by a broad national movement. For many years, the country experienced relative stability compared to previous regimes. The economy began to recover. Infrastructure improved. Foreign investment increased. Museveni gained support from Western governments and international institutions. But critics warned that power was becoming concentrated in one man. Over time, Museveni strengthened his control over the state. The military remained closely tied to his leadership. Many key positions in government were held by loyal allies. Opposition parties demanded full political competition. In 2005, Uganda officially reintroduced multi-party politics. But in the same year, something else happened. Uganda's constitution was amended. The presidential term limits were removed. This allowed Museveni to run for president indefinitely. Critics saw this as a turning point. Supporters said it ensured continuity and stability. But the result was clear. Museveni remained in power. As years passed, opposition voices grew stronger. One of the most prominent critics became musician-turned-politician Bobi Wine. Bobi Wine gained massive popularity among young Ugandans. He accused the government of corruption and repression. Political protests increased. The government responded with arrests and security crackdowns. Opposition leaders often claimed elections were unfair. The government rejected these accusations. In 2017, Uganda's parliament passed another controversial constitutional change. The presidential age limit was removed. Previously, candidates over 75 could not run for president. Museveni was approaching that age. Removing the age limit meant he could continue to contest elections. The decision sparked protests inside and outside parliament, but the law passed. Museveni remained eligible to rule. Today, Yoweri Museveni remains one of the longest-serving leaders in Africa. He has governed Uganda since 1986, more than 3 decades in power. Supporters argue he brought stability after years of chaos under earlier regimes. They credit his government with economic growth, improved security, and stronger institutions. But critics say Uganda has become increasingly authoritarian. They point to restrictions on protests, arrests of opposition leaders, and strong military influence in politics. The debate over Museveni's legacy continues. As Uganda's population grows younger, the country faces an uncertain political future. Many citizens were born long after Museveni came to power. They have never known another president. Will Uganda experience a peaceful transition of power, or will Museveni's rule continue for years to come? Only time will tell. But one thing is certain. The story of Yoweri Museveni is inseparable from the story of modern Uganda. From guerrilla fighter in the forests to one of Africa's most enduring presidents, Yoweri Museveni's rise and rule have shaped Uganda for nearly half a century. His supporters call him a revolutionary hero. His critics call him an entrenched strongman. History will decide which legacy endures. Thanks for watching. Please remember to subscribe, like, and leave comments below. See you in the next video.